Take it away.
Okay. All right.
All righty. So here we go. Let's talk a little bit about financial literacy. And I hope you guys are in the chat. I know you guys are high school students, so I'm going to ask you to interact with me because I don't want to just be talking to myself. So if you know anything about finances, if you like money, can you guys just put 1 in the chat if you're there? Who we got on here today? Anybody? No one likes money? Well, I don't know about you guys. I love money. Money makes the world go. There we go. Here we go. Some people. Okay. All righty. So let's talk about how we can manage our money. Let's go ahead and get into the slide.
All right. I got you, Kanisha. I'm controlling it. So
okay. So just right off back, let's talk about some statistics because I like numbers. Numbers make things make a little bit more sense. So over half of American households currently live paycheck to paycheck. 2/3 of Americans are actually struggling to come up with $1,000 in the event of an emergency. Only 24% of millennials demonstrate having the basic knowledge of financial literacy. 77 million American adults with a credit file has debt being reported to that file. They say more than 40 million Americans have student loans. Ooh.
come on.
It's okay.
There you go.
Actually, almost 6 million people owe more than $50,000. Guys, that's a whole lot of money to be owing someone that. And then 43% of Americans spend more than they receive each month and then borrow money to cover their shortfalls because they didn't have it. And then lastly, only 30% of Americans have long-term a financial plan that includes both having a savings account and investment goals. So what is financial literacy? You can go to the next slide. Financial literacy is a set of skills and knowledge that allows an individual, which meaning you, to make informed and effective decisions when it comes to their financial resources. And you may be wondering why that's so important. Well, it's really simple. The single biggest difference, next slide, of being the biggest difference between financial success and financial failure is how well you're able to manage your money. So in order to master money, you have to be able to manage your money. Next slide. So today I'm going to talk to you about 5 concepts to help us improve our financial literacy and start building on our money. The first one is going to be budgeting. Next slide. So budgeting is one of the most basic aspects to staying on top of your finances. So when you're budgeting, guys, you want to be realistic. Be as realistic as possible. And I mean by that, so if you're budgeting, you're out working. I don't know if you guys, if you are in the work field, go ahead and drop some 1. So I'll know if you guys are actually out in the work field now. But you want to be realistic with your budgeting. So say you go work, let's just use simple numbers for us all to understand. You get paid $10 an hour and you only work 2 hours. Of course, in your mind, you're going to be thinking, okay, I'm going to be bringing in $20. But in reality, you know, if you're working, you have taxes that's going to be coming out of that. You have other types of deductions that's going to be coming out of that money. So when you write down your budget, your money coming in, you want to lowball that, because you don't know exactly what that amount's going to be. But then when you want to go out and buy something, you actually want to highball that. So you want to lowball the money you bring in because you want to be able to get more than what you budget for, so you can save that. But then you want to highball what you're spending. So now you can make sure you're not messing up your budgeting by saying, I'm only going to spend $100, but you end up spending $150 because you pick up something else and maybe you didn't include taxes. And then you want to make sure to understand your needs versus your wants. You want to take care of your needs first. Always take care of your needs first when you're budgeting, and then reward yourself with your wants. But again, make sure your needs are taken care of. And then you want to align your budget with your goals, whatever your goals are. If it's to purchase your first car, you want to make sure your budget is actually putting more money in your savings, what we're going to talk about, so that you can reach those goals. And then you want to constantly review your budget every single month and recalculate it, because again, your budget is showing you how well you're able to manage your money and stay on track. And then you want to include your savings in that too, because savings is an expense. Okay. We all want to get better at spending, but on your budget, it's an expense. And if you don't budget to save, you're never going to save because the money you could have potentially saved was budgeted to spend somewhere else. Next slide. So going right into savings, guys, savings is a key principle to your success in maintaining healthy finances. Okay. So again, you want to set those goals, everything you do. I know we're talking about finances, but in life general, you always want to be able to set yourself up to the path of where you're going by setting goals, meaning long-term and short-term goals. And then you want to pay yourself first. I want to stress that to you guys, to pay yourself first. When you get out in the work field, if you're not already out there, when you get out on your own, bills are always going to come. No matter what you do in life, you're always going to have to pay something. So when you get your check, make sure you pay yourself first, and not pay yourself to go spend money somewhere else, but pay yourself by putting it in your savings. Okay. You want to maintain healthy banking accounts. And I mean by a checking account and a savings account, because you want to have one place where you can send your money that you're just going to save. But when you start thinking about banking accounts, you have to think about rates and all these other things that go into it. But you want to have you a set place to store your money. And then making sure that emergency savings fund is set up, and always planning for all of your events. Moving right along to interest. Once you start building money, you're going out and things, everything has interest to it. So what is interest? Interest is the cost it takes to borrow a certain amount of money. So when you go out and buy your first car, your car is going to come with interest. When you go off to school and you start applying for student loans are going to come with interest. When you go out to get your first home, when it comes to that point, there is going to be interest, and even with credit cards. So you always want to pay attention to your interest rate, which comes along with it, is the amount that's charged to borrowing money. So I'm gonna give you guys an example. If you go, say you come to me and say, hey, Kanisha, can I borrow $100? And I say, okay, I'm gonna let you borrow $100 for a year, but with the 2% interest rate. So that means every year that you're not paying that $100 back, $2 extra is gonna be paid to that. So if it only takes you 1 year to pay me my $100 back, that's $102 that you have to pay me. But if it takes you more than that, every year, again, it's just $2. So the longer it takes to pay that amount off, the more money you're going to pay in interest. And we're going to get into credit too today. And the lower your credit score is, the higher that interest rate is. Okay. Well, we have identity and safety, guys. The world we live in now, I'm sure you all know, have cell phones. We are a technology-driven world. And with that, our finances are really vulnerable to fraud. Every 2 seconds, someone's identity is stolen. So it's so important to make sure that you're monitoring your identity on social media, on anywhere that you're using public access. And so how does identity theft happen? It can happen through emails. Someone sends you an email asking you for information and you think it's legit, and you put in your information, and now you sent your information somewhere else. Downloading software that's not secure. Again, it's just the way people hack into you to get your information. Having outdated software, using software that may not be updated, and now you're using it, your hackers can easily break into that information. And then using unsecure sites, going online shopping, maybe you were Googling something and you found something really cheap, but it was some off-brand site that you didn't know anything about. You put in all your information. Now they have all your information and you never received anything that you ordered. So you have to be very careful when you're on these sites putting in your information. And some things you can do to protect yourself with identity is make sure your passwords are protected. Don't use the same passwords for all your accounts. Make sure it's not your last name, first name, or something. Make it hard for someone to guess it. And even if you use something simple, make sure you put in a capital letter here throughout the password, so that it makes it harder. You want to limit the amount of information you share online. And then a big thing, guys, is when you're in school, when you're at the library, or anywhere where you're using public access, do not put your information into those systems. And even try not to save your information even on your personal information, even on your personal devices, just in case, something is stolen, no one can easily tap into your information. All righty. And the last thing I want to talk to you guys is just about the credit and debt cycle. It's just understanding credit versus debt. You want to make sure that you understand credit is you borrowing money. Okay. So you don't want to be out here thinking, hey, I'm going to pay this on my credit card because I got this free money and I don't have to pay it back. Again, if you guys are getting ready to go to the next step, which means going into college or just getting out of your parents' house, once you get that taste of freedom, people are going to know and they're going to be tracking you down like, hey, go apply for this credit card. Like you can get this free money. Nothing in life is free. Okay. So that free money that they're telling you, when you go swipe it, you have to pay it back. And that interest thing that we just talked about, all of that applies. So just understanding the difference between credit and debt and knowing that it's much easier to lose credit than to gain credit. So that was my time. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Michael so that he can talk to you guys a little bit more about understanding credit. You're muted, Mike.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. Sorry again. Thank you, Kanisha, so very much for just your information. This is what you explained to us. I would just say with credit, and we'll get right into it. We're not trying to scare you guys, but just making you aware of what what you're about to face. I mean, some of you, getting ready to graduate. Some are just starting out, but just making you aware of what's going on. So in the chat, show me, put a 1 in the chat if you know what credit is. All right. Okay. There we go. There we go. I see a couple of them. Okay. Yeah. So, credit is ability, Kanisha hit on ability to borrow money and excess goods with the understanding you will pay it back later. I tell you, my personal testimony, you know, growing up, going to college, hey, getting that new credit card, $2,000 credit limit. Hey, I thought I was on top of the world till I had to realize I had to pay it back. And then, hey, if you're not working or the money's not coming in, how do you pay that back? Once you can't pay that back, these things that go against your credit. So, we're talking about, like I said, going back to credit scores. The credit is based on the confidence that you can be trusted to pay back what you borrowed, along with the finance charges that may apply. Kanisha talked about that before. It's a lot of things with a credit card. Not only you're paying interest, you're paying your principal. Say not only if that credit card, if you pay it late, you not only that withdrawals or and decreases your credit limit, but you might have to pay a $29 or $39 late fee on top of that, and it get reports to the 3 credit bureaus that we're getting ready to talk about. Your credit history summarized in your credit report. So it's 3 credit reports that we have out there is Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Banks, credit unions, credit card issuers report your borrowing and repayment history to the 3 credit bureaus. One thing I want to point out, so we're going to go to a good credit score. So if you ever see, I know you guys seen the commercials with Credit Karma, you might see My FICO, you might see Experian.com. Put in the chat if you've seen those commercials before or know what those are. And all those are like, is just credit monitoring services. And you guys have seen, I'm sure you've seen or heard your parents talk about, oh, I got to check my score on Credit Karma or through my bank or through FICO or through Experian. So the key is, so with Credit Karma, and this is just something to be very important as you guys, you're looking at, for a loan or for credit card or to get a car, new car, or get a house. So with Credit Karma, they use something called a Vantage score, Vantage 3.0. So that's kind of a good estimate, a good idea what your credit score is. But in reality, a lot of your mortgage lenders and car lenders, they use something called FICO score. So you can be saying that Credit Karma might show your credit score being a 700, but in reality, what the mortgage lenders may use, they may see a score of 620. So these are the things just to, like I said, we're just making you aware of these things you'll face later on, as you grow up and as you're, going out on your own. So score ranges. I see you guys are probably may not know this. Score ranges between 300 to 850. Think about it as a grade. I mean, and that's what we'll break down later. I mean, the higher it is, the better off you are. Like I said, lower interest rates, uh, uh, more opportunity, better opportunity to get approved for loans, get approved for car loans, mortgages, credit cards, you name it. But in the same sense, you want to be very educational, be very aware about just because you got an 850 doesn't necessarily mean you got to go out here and purchase and buy and get run up your credit score. And that's another thing we'll talk about. Most credit scores fall between 600 and 750. That's where you want to be on the higher end of that. Okay. All right. How's the credit score calculated? Think about it as a grade. So all these total up to like 100% if you see right here. And we'll break all of them down. Your payment history, 35% of that. Say that's like if you're looking at like your grades that you guys get in school, that could be your final exam. Your payment history is a large amount of your credit score. So that's being on time, being responsible, paying, that could be your loans, it can be credit cards, your mortgage, your car. That could be anything that you have, making sure that you're on time with that. Um, I've seen cases when, and personally, this has happened to me where I may have forgot to pay something or was late paying something. That shot my credit score down like 50 to 100 points. So say like if you're late, like 30 days late, that can drop your credit score from like a 800 to like a 700 or to a 650. Okay, 30%. Think about this as your tests, like your 4 tests that you're doing throughout the semesters. Amounts owed, that's your credit utilization. So for example, say you have a credit card of a limit of $1,000. The lower that utilization amount is, the better that your credit score will be. So if we're saying $1,000, 30% of that is $300, right? So you want to stay 300 and below. And you're saying, how do you do that? I mean, and it's easier said than done. And like I said, as you learn this, just don't bite off more than what you can chew, like Kanisha said. If you know, kind of think about credit as your emergencies or something you necessarily just don't lavishly spend on things you really don't need. That's going back to what she was saying, needs versus wants. So like I said, 30% that stay within that 30% utilization. So stay within that 300 or below. Also, length of credit history. Think about your age. The older you are, the better off you are. So your credit history, that's your age of your accounts that are open right now. So that could be loans, that could be credit cards, that can be mortgage. Just the overall age. The higher that is, the better you're off. Um, New credit. That's So let me do types of credit. I'm sorry, types of credit. Types of credit, that's just having a good mix. If you have like a credit card, if you have like a mortgage loan, if you have a student loan, the more mix that you have, the better off you are. And then new credit, you'll hear that's credit, that's hard, that's inquiries on your credit report. I know a lot of times, but they don't tell you this. It's another thing that you might want to keep in mind. Say you have a pretty decent credit score, right? You go to a dealership and say, okay, you have about a 620. We can get you into something. What they don't tell you is that they run your credit multiple times. The lower your credit score is, they run it multiple times. That can be, I mean, I've seen it where it's been ran like somebody will get it ran like 5 or 6 times. And the more times, that's like hard inquiries on your credit report. And those things can knock your score down as well. So just be mindful of those things. Like I said, if you don't know, talk to someone. Like I said, we'll give our information at the end of this, or give it to the teachers. But just don't know. Don't try to go out here and be this ball out of control, and then you don't have a way to pay it. Ask somebody. Like if you're looking at a new car, or looking at a house, looking at a credit card, just say in my mind, does this make sense? Am I going to be able to pay this back? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? Things like that. Okay. What you should know, credit reporting agencies, we're talking about TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They're not government entities. They're private companies that utilize customer financial data. What that means is that they purchase their data from credit card companies, from loan companies, that's the little details you don't see when you're signing these contracts to get a new home, or definitely with a credit card. You'll see, this is right to kind of solicit you, and that's why you start getting a lot of emails, a lot of spam, a lot of things like that. But they're entities. They're not government entities. They're their own private companies, and the creditors they decide on what they report to one, two, or all agencies. So that's why you'll see, if with Equifax you might have a 700, with Experian you might have a 680, and with TransUnion you might have a 720. Reason that being is because what's reported on one credit report may not be reported on all three credit reports. And a lot of times we're thinking that, okay, this is going to drop my credit score if I, don't pay on this, or something happens, or this will push up my or increase my credit score if I pay on this, but not necessarily. It just all depends on the creditor. It all depends on your credit profile and what that is. That's your credit report and things like that. You have the right to review and dispute items on your credit report. That's something called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. A cool thing that they've been doing since this pandemic is like, and like I said, I know you guys are young and starting out, but you can even tell your parents. They have something. It's called annualcreditreport.com. And what you can do is, at first, it's like you can just run your credit report once a year and get it for free. But now, up until April of 2022, and that's next year, so they can pull their credit report from all three credit bureaus for free each week. You can do it weekly and get a free credit report. So, and you got over, what is this, March? So think about it, you have an opportunity to pull almost close to 52 plus new credit reports each year if you choose to do that. And that's also not only good for just to see what's on your credit report, just to see if, inaccuracies, like you could have a wrong address, wrong social security number. It could be somebody might use, I hear about this too as well. Some parents might steal their kids' identity at an early age. I've heard of situations like that where they've used their kids' credit. So when they go to buy a home, or they go to get a credit card, or they go try to get a student loan, they can't do it. It's not that they don't have credit, and sometimes that's what we'll talk about, credit, no credit at all. Sometimes it could be that you don't have credit because you're starting off. But sometimes I've seen where people have gotten their identity stolen, and then to go through that process is always can be a pain. It can be very difficult to get out of. So, like I said, at you all's age, I would recommend, if you can. Let's see what else. Yeah, we won't hit on the UCS protection plan, but what I would recommend for you guys is to, if you with your parent or guardian, if they have a credit card and say they're making on-time payments, they're doing what they're supposed to do, they can add you as an authorized user. Not to say, I'm not saying to go, once again, go crazy and try to spend their credit card, but what that does is kind of help build your, once you turn 17, let me point that out as well. It helps build your credit report. It helps build your credit score. So you're 18, you have a good credit score. Like I said, that just helps you just prepare for the future. Um, with that said, like Kanisha, I'll turn it back to you if there's anything else we want to go over. But if you guys have any questions or any concerns or comments, hey, now it's just the floor is open.
Does anyone have any questions? I think it's a good time to open it up for questions.
Yeah. And like I said, we know, again, this is new for you guys. I mean, you're ninth grade, 12th grade. So these are some things that you won't know until, you hit with it. Now, I'm not sure about the college scene now, but I remember going to A&T. Like, that was one of the first things you saw out on the street, on the block, is that people trying to sign you up for a credit card. And like I said, you're young, you don't know. Hey, I got $2,000 in my pocket, but hi, it's not in cash, it's in credit. But then another thing, the trick they'll try to say, well, you can get cash advances. That's another thing that can hit you hard. Like, say, like, your credit limit is $2,000, and say you have a cash advance of 1,000, okay, once again, you still have to pay that money back with interest. And a lot of times those cash advances, even though your credit card may say you might have a 9% interest rate, that cash advance might be 29% on top of that 9% that you have to pay back. So just things like that, just to be aware. Again, ask an adult, don't be ashamed. Um, you'd rather struggle now than be broke later. You know, it's just one of those things, just to kind of, just to be mom, just have that mindset and not to be ashamed to ask anyone for help or assistance.
And I'll just piggyback off of what Michael just said too. Definitely don't be ashamed, because I mean, I've been out of school maybe 10 years, guys. So I'm not that old. But when I was in high school, we never was given this opportunity for someone to just come talk to us about the importance of finances and things like interest rate. The most we got was how to write a check. And, even with them telling us how we can go out and write a check, they never told us that once we write that check and we give it away, that money doesn't technically come out right then at that time. So, they never gave us those skills to get ahead. So definitely ask questions, sit down and have that conversation with your parents, because then it could just be a situation where you both, you and your parents are learning together, and then they can teach you what they know so that you can go apply. And then if you do know it, have a conversation with your friends. It's never too young when you're in lunch to sit around and talk about finances. Hey, what, especially if you're out working, because having that knowledge will take you so far in life. So I'm super excited that you guys are even in the position to get this information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think anyone has any questions, but I just wanted to say you guys did an amazing job.
Definitely. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Penn, Ms. Mitchell, and Mr. Stanley. Good to see you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Kanisha, again.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Kanisha, and I will be getting with y'all to give you your thank you gift.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All have a good day. Thank you.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Keon.